The first time I really noticed her was at the laundromat down the block. I was folding a t-shirt too carefully, as if creases mattered to someone who lived out of a backpack most of the time. She came in with a basket tucked against her hip, keys dangling from her finger. I almost dropped my shirt when I realized it was her, my landlady. I'd seen her around the building, of course. Quick nods in the hallway. Rent slipped under her door in an envelope. She always looked put together in that way women in their 40s sometimes do. Casual, but as if every piece of clothing had been chosen for comfort and quiet dignity. Her hair was tied back loosely, a few strands falling over her cheek. She caught me staring and gave the faintest smile. "You do laundry on Sundays too?" I cleared my throat. Yeah? Well, when I remember. Not funny, not smooth. But she laughed anyway, soft and short, as if it wasn't about the words, but the hesitation. After that, I started noticing her more. How she held the railing on the stairs like she didn't quite trust it. The way she paused outside her door before unlocking it, like she needed a breath first. She remembered my name before I ever remembered hers. "Ethan, right?" she said one evening, as I fumbled with grocery bags. I nodded, startled. "Yeah, you're Ms. Harrow." "Caroline's fine," she corrected, with that same faint smile. It was nothing, really. Just passing exchanges, fragments of days. But they stuck. I'd find myself looking at my phone longer than I should, typing out a text I never sent. "Thanks for the mail. Appreciate the fix on the heater. Hope your day's okay." Then deleting it. Because she was my landlady. Because she was in her 40s. Because none of it made sense. Loneliness doesn't announce itself. It's just in the way your apartment stays too quiet, in the half-finished dinners, in how you talk out loud sometimes just to test your own voice. I think she felt that too. Maybe that's why I noticed her more than I should have. Last night, it rained hard. The kind that makes the street lamps blur. I came back soaked through, clutching takeout that was already cold. As I passed her door, it opened suddenly. Caroline leaned against the frame, holding a mug, steam curling up like a small shield between us. "You're drenched," she said, amused. "Yeah, I misjudged the forecast." I shifted the bag in my hands. Classic rookie mistake. Her eyes flicked to the carton of noodles, then back to my face. Something unreadable passed there, half smile, half silence. She didn't invite me in. She didn't need to. Just standing there, barefoot in her doorway, it felt like the air had shifted. Then, almost offhand, she said, "This place gets lonely sometimes." I froze. My hand tightened on the plastic bag. The words hung there, too light to be casual, too heavy to ignore. "Before I could think better of it," I said, "then let me keep you company." Her head tilted slightly, as if she hadn't expected that. She didn't answer right away. Just looked at me. Really looked, like she was weighing something. Then she laughed softly, almost to herself, and stepped back inside, closing the door with quiet finality. I stood there for a moment, heart thudding, wet shoes squeaking against the hallway floor. When I finally reached my apartment, a buzz lit up my phone. A text from a number I didn't recognize but somehow knew was hers. "You meant that?" I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering, trying to decide what a simple yes might change. I didn't answer her text right away. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, backspacing a dozen different versions of yes. Eventually, I sent the simplest one I could. "Yeah, I did." A few minutes later came her reply, "T." That was how I ended up sitting at her small kitchen table, damp hoodie draped over the chair behind me. The apartment looked like hers, but not like I'd imagined. Less tidy, more lived in. A half-finished crossword sat on the counter, a cardigan tossed over the couch. She moved easily around the stove, 2 mugs waiting between us. "You really meant it?" she asked, not looking at me, stirring sugar into hers. I gave a weak laugh. I don't usually joke about keeping people company. That earned me a glance, sharp but not unkind. She slid the mug toward me, my hands wrapped around it, more for something to do than for warmth. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was weighted. Like we both knew speaking too freely could tilt everything. "You remind me of my son's friends," she said at last. Her voice was careful, like she was testing my reaction. The ones who used to hang around here during high school. Always eating my food, laughing too loud. I looked down at the tea. Guess that makes this a little strange then. Maybe, she admitted. Then softer, but strange doesn't always mean bad. Her words lodged in me. I wasn't sure what to do with them. I noticed the small things, the chipped nail polish on her thumb, the way her hair slipped loose from its tie, the crease on her wrist where her watch usually sat. They shouldn't have felt intimate, but they did. I found myself saying, almost without thinking, when I moved here, I thought living alone would feel free. But it's just been quiet. Too quiet, sometimes. She studied me, chin resting lightly on her hand. That doesn't go away. The quiet, I mean. Something in her tone made me wonder if she was speaking from years of it. A husband who left? Or maybe no one at all. I didn't ask. I was too afraid of the answer. We didn't talk much after that. The rain tapped the window, steady and soft. She stood to tidy the mugs, and I moved instinctively to help. When our hands brushed on the same handle, neither of us pulled away immediately. Just a second too long, but enough to feel like a question was asked without words. I glanced at her, and she was already looking at me, steady, unblinking. She smiled faintly, a kind of acknowledgement. You should head back. It's late. I nodded, though I didn't want to. Gathering my hoodie, I lingered at the door. She reached out, almost as if to touch my arm, then stopped short, her fingers just grazing the air near me. It wasn't a touch. Not really. But I felt it. Walking back across the hall, the thought settled deep and heavy. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next few days, I barely saw her. Her door stayed shut, the light under it gone early. I told myself it was nothing, that people have lives, routines. Still, I caught myself listening for the sound of her keys in the lock. One evening, I found myself outside the building with 2 paper cups of coffee. I don't know why I bought the second one. Habit, maybe. Or hope. I knocked on her door, balancing the cups awkwardly. She opened slowly, like she wasn't expecting anyone. Her hair was damp, wrapped in a towel, and for a moment, she looked almost startled to see me. Coffee delivery, I said, forcing a small smile. I bought 2 by accident. Her eyes flicked to the cups, then back to me. Something unreadable there. You didn't have to. I know, I said, but I wanted to. That hung between us too long. She stepped aside, finally, and I followed her into the kitchen. We sat at the table again, the same one as before, except this time the silence wasn't comfortable. It was restless. Her fingers traced the rim of her cup, mine tapped against the cardboard sleeve. You're making a habit of this, she said quietly. Of what? Showing up. I shrugged, throat tight. Do you want me to stop? Her eyes lifted to mine, steady, uncertain. She didn't answer right away. Before either of us could say more, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. A neighbor's voice, cheerful, familiar, called out, Caroline, you around? She flinched, just slightly. Then she stood quickly, motioning me to wait. She cracked the door open, answered lightly, yes, just a quiet night in. Her tone was practiced, polite. When she returned, she didn't sit right away. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You see? People notice things. They always do. I swallowed hard. What things? Her gaze lingered on me, softer than her words. Doesn't matter. For a long time we didn't speak. The coffee grew cold between us. My chest felt tight, like something important was slipping just out of reach. She finally sat again, close enough that her sleeve brushed mine when she moved. Neither of us shifted away. I don't know what you want from this, she said, almost under her breath. I could have told her. I could have said you. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I watched her hand resting on the table, still, careful. My own hand twitched, almost reaching. Her eyes followed the motion. Her lips parted, just slightly. The room felt charged, too small. If I leaned forward another inch, if she didn't pull back. But then she exhaled sharply, as if breaking whatever spell had gathered. She pushed her chair back, the scrape loud in the quiet room. "You should go," she whispered. Not angry, not cold, just unsure. I stood slowly, hoodie in my hands again. At the door, I looked back once. She was still at the table, staring at the untouched coffee. Her hand was pressed against her mouth, like she was holding words in. And for a second, just one, I thought she might call me back. It happened on a Thursday evening, after I ran into her outside the building. She was carrying a bag of groceries that looked too heavy for one arm. Without asking, I took it from her. She didn't protest, just let me fall into step beside her. The air was cool, dusk settling low. We walked without speaking, the bag swinging lightly between us. At the corner bench, halfway back to the apartments, she stopped, as if she needed a break. Or maybe just a moment. We sat. The street was quiet except for the buzz of a lone street lamp. She leaned back, exhaling like she'd been holding her breath all day. "I should have done this earlier," she murmured. "Done what?" "Asked for help." A wry smile. "I'm terrible at it." I glanced at her. "You don't seem terrible. Just careful." That earned me a look, sharp but softened by something unspoken. The silence stretched, longer than usual. I could feel it building, pressing against both of us. Then she said, almost too quietly, "You're too young to waste your time sitting here with me." The words hit harder than I expected. "I don't feel like I'm wasting it." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "That's not the point." "Then what is?" Her hands twisted in her lap. She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was steadier, but low. "Do you know how it looks?" A woman in her 40s, sitting here with. She stopped herself. Her eyes found mine, then flicked away. "People already talk. They always have." I felt something burn in my chest. "Let them." Her head snapped back to me, startled. For a moment, I thought she might actually believe me. But then her gaze softened into something else. Fear, maybe. Or guilt. "I don't trust myself around you," she admitted. The words came out small, like she regretted them even as she said them. My throat went dry. I shifted closer without thinking, until our knees almost touched. I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, warm and familiar now. "I don't trust myself either," I said. It slipped out before I could stop it. Her breath caught, barely audible. The space between us thinned. For a long time we sat there, neither moving, both waiting for the other to break the silence. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down, like if I reached across that last inch, nothing would ever be the same again. She looked at me then, directly, as if there was no point pretending anymore. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. The night hummed around us. My pulse roared in my ears. And then she whispered, more to herself than to me, "What are we doing?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, trembling like something that might shatter if either of us reached for it. After that night on the bench, everything changed, but not in the way I thought it would. For 2 days, her door stayed closed. No light under it late at night. No faint sound of the TV through the wall. When I finally knocked, there was no answer. I told myself she was busy, that it wasn't about me. But the silence felt deliberate, like she was teaching me something without saying it. On the 3rd day, I saw her outside by chance. She was carrying a grocery bag again, but this time she didn't slow down when she passed me. Just a polite nod, a clipped hello. "Caroline," I started. She shook her head. "Not now, Ethan." Her tone wasn't cold, just firm. A line drawn quick and clean. That should have been enough. But later that evening, I heard voices in the hallway. Hers and another man's. I froze by my own door, listening without meaning to. The man's laugh, deep, easy, rolled through the air. A moment later, her door closed, and the quiet that followed felt heavier than before. I told myself it was nothing. A friend, a neighbor, maybe her brother. But the sound replayed in my head, mocking. When I finally saw her again, days later, she looked tired. She was unlocking her mailbox, and I caught a glimpse of an envelope addressed in a child's handwriting. Blue marker letters, uneven but careful. She noticed me looking and tucked it quickly into her bag. "My daughter," she said, too fast, like she hadn't planned to. She's away at school. I nodded, trying to keep my voice even. I didn't know you had a daughter. There's a lot you don't know, she said, not unkindly, but final. The words stung more than I wanted to admit. That night, I stared at my phone, typing messages I didn't send. Are you okay? Did I do something? Do you want me to leave you alone? Each one erased before my thumb could press send. The apartment felt smaller than usual. I cooked, but didn't eat. I put music on, then turned it off mid-song. Everything reminded me of her absence. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. The next evening, I walked past her door with 2 cups of coffee, the same way I had before. I stood there too long, heat seeping into my fingers, until the paper felt soft. I raised my hand to knock. Stopped. The hallway was still. Only the faint hum of the building's pipes. Finally, I set the cups down on the floor, side by side, and walked back to my apartment. When I checked an hour later, they were gone. But her door was still closed. It happened late, almost midnight. I'd just come back from a shift, half asleep, when I saw her door cracked open. A line of light spilled into the hallway. For a minute I stood there, debating. Then her voice carried out, low, almost resigned. You can come in, if you want. I pushed the door gently. She was at the kitchen table, cardigan draped over her shoulders, a half-empty mug cooling in front of her. She looked tired, but not surprised to see me. I thought you were done with me, I said quietly, sliding into the chair across from her. Her eyes flicked up, steady but worn. I tried. Didn't work. That silence again, but sharper this time. Everything we'd left unsaid pressing in. Finally, she leaned back, crossing her arms like she needed to hold herself together. I'm not good at this, Ethan. I don't know what you think you want, but I'm not simple. I have a daughter. I have history. She stopped, swallowing hard. I don't want to hurt you. The words should have stung, but instead, I felt something loosen in me. You already have, I admitted, voice thin. But not in the way you think. It's the not knowing. The stopping halfway. She looked at me then, really looked. No smile, no mask. Just her, exhausted, conflicted, alive. I wake up sometimes, she said slowly, and wonder what people would say if they knew. Then I wonder what you would say, in 10 years, when you look back and regret this. I shook my head. That's the thing. I don't care what anyone says. I only care if you regret it. Her mouth opened, then closed. She rubbed at her wrist where her watch usually sat, like she needed something solid to hold on to. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. The honesty startled both of us. We sat there, breathing in sync, every second stretching long and fragile. I reached for my mug, not to drink, just to steady my hand. She noticed. Her eyes dropped to my fingers, then back to my face. It felt like a decision point, like if either of us looked away, it would all collapse. Finally, I said, almost a whisper, so what do we do? Her answer came slow, careful, but sure. We don't pretend anymore. I let that sink in. It wasn't a declaration, not even a promise, just real. When she reached across the table, her hand barely brushed mine. Not a grab, not a hold, just enough for skin to meet skin. I looked at her, and she gave me the smallest, most tired smile I'd ever seen. Okay, she asked, as if the word itself was a fragile thread between us. I nodded. Okay. And that was enough. Time didn't rush after that night. It stretched, quietly, the way life usually does. We didn't make rules or speeches. There was no talk of what this meant, or how it would end. It was simpler. She knocked on my door one morning, 2 mugs in her hands. Black coffee for me, tea for her. No explanation, no invitation. Just a new kind of routine. Sometimes we sat in her kitchen before the day began, half awake, watching the clock. 8:47 a.m. always seemed to sneak up on us. Her cue to get moving, my cue to head to class or work. The way she'd sigh, setting her cup down, became as familiar as my own heartbeat. Other times, we ended up back on that bench. Groceries between us, air cooling into evening. Nothing dramatic, Just quiet space, a place where I could say nothing and still feel heard. Her daughter came by one weekend. I heard the laughter through the walls, lighter than I'd ever heard from her. Caroline didn't introduce us, and I didn't expect her to. It wasn't my place, not yet. But the sound stayed with me. Proof that her life was bigger than just these late nights and small moments with me. And somehow, that made what we had feel more real. We never crossed lines carelessly. No sudden kisses in doorways. No whispered declarations in the dark. Just touches that lingered. A hand brushing mine as I passed her a mug. Her shoulder pressing lightly against me on the walk home. The kind of closeness that didn't need to prove itself. She told me once, quietly, that she hadn't felt this at ease in years. I didn't answer, just folded the napkin between us until it looked like a neat little square. She smiled when she saw it, because she remembered. The laundromat. The t-shirt I folded too carefully. The start of all this. Months later, I realized I no longer typed out unsent texts at night. I didn't need to. If something sat on my chest, I knew I'd see her in the morning, coffee steam curling between us, her eyes carrying more truth than words ever could. It wasn't a love story anyone else would notice. Neighbors probably thought nothing of it, just a tenant and his landlady sharing the occasional laugh. But I knew better. She did too. And when she leaned her head lightly against my shoulder one evening, no words, no build-up, I didn't move. I didn't need to. It wasn't grand, it wasn't cinematic. It was ours. Looking back, I can't point to one single moment when everything changed. Maybe it was the bench. Maybe it was the unsent texts. Maybe it was her hand brushing mine that night she said, "I don't trust myself around you." All I know is this. Life didn't feel paused anymore. It felt lived. And every time she poured my coffee black and set her tea beside it, I understood something only we would ever understand.